Imagine thousands of factories around the world printing millions of product labels every single day. Between the wildly different machines, the various paper types, and even the local weather conditions, replicating an exact physical product on a global scale is a logistical nightmare. Heinz ketchup ran into a massive problem with this. Restaurants were taking empty Heinz bottles and refilling them with cheap generic ketchup. To combat this, Heinz printed a border around their label using the precise, specific red of their actual ketchup. If the condiment inside didn't perfectly match the label, customers immediately knew it was a fake. But for that security check to actually work, every single Heinz label printed in every factory across the globe had to carry that exact same shade of red. Getting close wasn't good enough. The moment you introduce a different printer, a new batch of ink, or a slightly different paper texture, that perfect red shifts into a completely different color. This discrepancy immediately translates to hard financial losses. Kodak, the camera company, noticed a bizarre trend across their retail stores. Certain boxes of the exact same film were selling drastically better than others. When they investigated, they found the problem on the outside of the packaging. Because the boxes were printed in different factories, some arrived sporting a slightly duller shade of the signature Kodak yellow. Customers saw the duller boxes and subconsciously assumed the film inside was old or defective, leaving perfectly good inventory rotting on the shelves. This exact vulnerability plagues any massive brand that relies on a specific color for identity. Whether it's Cadbury's purple, Starbucks green, or Coca-Cola's iconic red, keeping that visual identity identical across borders is an impossibly difficult task. A microscopic deviation in the physical output on a factory floor, thousands of miles away, directly translates to a loss of consumer trust and a severe drop in revenue. Now, if you work on a computer, you might wonder why manufacturers couldn't simply use standard digital color codes like RGB or CMYK. These systems work reliably as long as the color stays on a glowing digital screen. But once you print that digital code onto a physical surface, the material fights back. Cardboard absorbs ink differently than cotton, creating completely unpredictable results. The physical manufacturing world was left dealing with a massive, highly expensive gap. They desperately needed a reliable, universal way to translate an exact color across the globe. In 1963, a company called Pantone stepped in to solve this. They didn't invent color, and they didn't develop any new printing machines. They created a universal language. They built the Pantone Matching System, a physical guidebook. For every specific color, the book provides three things: a unique reference number, the precise ink formula needed to create it, and a tangible physical sample of exactly how that color should look in the real world. Instead of relying on a factory worker to guess a brand's color by eye, a company like Heinz could simply request Pantone 485C. A facility in any country could then open their book, follow the exact chemical recipe provided for that number, and mix the inks perfectly. They provided a standardized dictionary that brought absolute predictability to a globally fragmented supply chain. Creating a shared language is completely useless if no one else agrees to speak it. If a brand requests a specific Pantone number, but their manufacturer uses a completely different standard, the color still comes out wrong. To force the entire industry to adopt their standard, Pantone targeted the absolute base of the supply chain. They approached 20 major international ink manufacturers and offered them licensing deals. These deals allowed the manufacturers to officially produce and sell inks using Pantone's exact proprietary formulas. Because these manufacturers were making money selling Pantone certified ink, they suddenly had a direct financial incentive to promote the system themselves. The more brands they convinced to use Pantone's language, the more certified ink they sold. The manufacturers became a free global sales force. By the time competitors introduced alternative systems, switching costs were incredibly high. Printers, packaging companies, and global brands were completely integrated into the Pantone workflow, avoiding the financial risk of relearning a new system. Pantone locked down the market by turning the very companies they relied on into their fiercest advocates. The core product, the physical guidebooks themselves, are incredibly expensive, often costing hundreds or thousands of dollars for professional sets. Yet Pantone explicitly recommends that their customers buy brand new replacements every single year. There are no mandatory software subscriptions or forced legal contracts demanding this turnover. The entire replacement cycle is driven by the unavoidable laws of physics. The moment a guidebook is printed, the ink begins to degrade. Exposure to light, fluctuations in humidity, the oils from constant handling, and basic aging all cause the printed color samples to slowly shift over time. A faded guide provides inaccurate color references. If the physical sample in the book no longer matches the true formula, the system breaks entirely, forcing brands to buy a new edition. By relying on the inevitable physical decay of their own core product, Pantone engineered a brilliant recurring revenue model without ever locking a customer into a contract. By 1999, the company decided to run a small promotional press release. They chose a shade called cerulean and officially declared it the color of the year. What appears to the public as a simple announcement is actually the result of massive, highly coordinated, invisible machinery. Months before declaring the winner, Pantone strikes secretive licensing deals with major brands across vastly different industries. By the time the press release goes live, toy companies, furniture makers, and fashion houses have already manufactured their upcoming lines using that exact shade. Because products across all these different categories hit the market simultaneously, it creates a self-fulfilling prophecy. The sudden, overwhelming omnipresence of the color makes the engineered trend feel completely organic to the consumer. Through this campaign, Pantone established itself as the absolute cultural authority, dictating what consumers will buy, wear, and decorate with. They took a naturally occurring, unpatentable phenomenon, color itself, and built a global empire around it. They achieved a complete monopoly by establishing this single unified language that brought order to global chaos.